Hello there. I am Dan the Meek, and I'm here today to give you a little overview on how to construct a deck in Draconis 8. As you can see here, I'm recording this during the early access period, so some of this might be subject to change, but from what I understand from talking to one of the main devs on the team, Carl, everything's kind of set in stone as far as balance at this point for set one. So something in this app might look different. And all this I'm going to go over is going to apply to the physical game as well. But the core concepts, as far as I'm understanding, should be applicable going forward, at least for set one. So we're in Draconis 8 here. You've decided, hey, I want to give this game a chance, or maybe you've given it a chance and you're thinking, this is pretty fun, but I'm not really sure how to build my own deck here, or how to select a good deck if I'm going through single pack format or playing 3-pack ethereal, something like that. Maybe you're just picking randomly and you want to understand how do I pick what's actually good? Well, that's what we're here for today, to kind of help you do that. Who am I beyond Dan the Meek? At the time of this recording, I am still #1 lifetime on the leaderboards for ranked play. Any of the other ones vary from time to time, and even here, we've had some jumps around, depending on who's doing what, who's playing around. But at this moment, I am #1, and I'm pretty consistently in these top spots. So take that for what you will, but I'd like to think I have at least some knowledge on how to make a respectable deck. So back to the front page. Let's go over what we would do first. So we want to make a deck. Let's go to our collection. You can see here, this is kind of what I've got. Yours is going to look different to whatever you have. If you're trying to build a deck for the first time, construct a deck, your options are going to vary. But if you're just doing, again, 3-pack ethereal format, you don't own anything. You're playing this completely free to play. These what we're going to go over is going to apply as well. So let's open Deck Builder. And I'm just going to pick a deck here and blow it away so we can start fresh. Get rid of that one. And now we're going to add a deck. All right, so core concepts of building a deck. Again, there's lots of theories, lots of thoughts. I am not the definitive word, but I'm going to try to give you some general rules of thumb. I posted these, I think, on Realms Rising's website and also on the Discord for the game. So, this is in other places as well. But I'm going to go over those and kind of show you with my collection here how you might apply these core concepts. First things first, it's been stated a bunch of times, almost always it's worthwhile having a command in your deck. So I like to break everything down into a couple subgroups for when I'm deciding how to build a deck. We have the manipulation cards. These are things like Fear, Confuse, Stomp, and Command. Of those, we have Disruptions, which are, again, Fear, Confuse, and Stomp. And then we have support, stuff that does stuff for you. Only one in set one is Command, although you could argue Stomp is often used like a support as well, even though it interacts with your opponent's card. But in any case, because there is only one type of support, and it is very helpful to have a support card, it's almost always worth having one command card in your deck. You can run more. It is possible to get away with running less. I've certainly done it. But if you're brand new and you're just like, what is going to get me a good starting place? It's a good idea to just try to start by putting a command in there. Now, what do you want for your command? Command's pretty open. Some of these work better at higher speeds, lower speeds, certain stat spreads. Command, generally speaking, it's good at both high and low speed. Like with most cards, you usually want a strong corner, but like at a high speed, you're not going to have the stats for that. So like, for instance, here, this 19, because it's got a high 29, that's still pretty good. It's up to you which you prefer. I like both. This guy, for instance, up here is pretty solid if I wanted to go top speed. But as you can see, top speed, our stats are pretty low, so you might not want to do that. I will say I am a big fan of slow command personally. Not everybody is. And you'll notice here when we're filtering, at least at the time I'm filming here, that the dragons are included in this as well. That should also factor in. If I am picking a command dragon, I don't necessarily need a command champion in my deck because that's already covered by my dragon. Now, you might want to run two so you have the ability to fix your dragon, but again, something to consider. In this example here, let's say I want to go high speed. I want it when I'm going to play this, I'm going to run one command, and when I play it, I want it to go where I want it to go. So speed's going to matter to me. So again, I'm looking for strong corners or strong individual speeds. So either of these two would work great. Do I need speed 20? You're going to get much better stats at, say, speed 17. But your collection is what's going to define this kind of stuff. So you'll see here, 17, I'm gaining way more stats, but because a bunch of them went to this other corner that I'm not usually using, the 3 and the 6, I actually don't end up that much higher. 26, 24, 21, 27, it's not as big a gap as you might expect. So that's something to keep in mind. In this case, I think I am just going to go top speed, just because, again, I have that luxury. Again, I could go either of these guys. I think I'm going to probably favor this one a little more, but I like that double one just because it looks nice to me, seeing such a min-maxed unit. I'm going to pick it in this example. But again, you do not need top speed stuff. I would say, generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, high and low is better than medium. So I would probably select anything high or low over, say, this 10 speed here or this 11 speed, even though these have okay stat spreads. You'll notice here, even though it's 11 speed, its stats aren't that much higher. So you're giving up a lot of potential to go first and win that speed point in order to not gain too much. Whereas when you get to the lower speeds, you get a lot more stats for your bucks. So it's worth it to risk going second or even to concede going second. And command, because of how it works, where you might be wanting to undo something they've disrupted, is fine going second if it needs to. Sometimes you want to get into that spot before they can, and so going fast is still better. But because of that fact that if they disrupt, you have the ability to undisrupt, going slow isn't the end of the world. And because it hits in all directions instead of more limited like some of the other manipulations, it's a little more flexible that if you do go second, it's harder for them to block you from getting value. All right, so you've picked a command. Again, don't fret too much on it, but if it's something 16 or higher or 5 or lower, 4 or lower, you probably pick something pretty good. If you don't have any of those, again, just look for a good stat spread, ideally a good corner or one additional good strength. Where are we going from here? Well, I mentioned before, I break these up into groups. I have my foundations, which are rooted, enforced, range, flight. These guys here, and aura, these guys are foundational cards. They play on the field. They don't do an effect on play, but they have strong stats. All these have higher stats than the manipulation cards, and they're trying to do something for you every turn. They're always doing something. So aura always has the potential to get you extra points. Flight, same. These are what I would also sub-identify as offensive cards. Aura, flight, and range. They all have the potential to get you extra points while providing good field stats. Enforced and rooted are more defensive. So they're more for the cautious player. You don't have as much room for a comeback, so not generating you points. But if you can get just a little bit of lead here and there, they're really hard for your opponent to get out from behind once you have a lead. So for the player who wants to play more cautiously and just keep your opponent from doing what they want to do, these are the guys for you. I already mentioned the manipulators before. The reason I break these up is because I generally find it's good to have about half and half of each. So it doesn't matter which ones. You can choose if you want to go offense, defense, some combination of all of those 5. Same with manipulations. But I generally want to have about 4 foundation cards and 4 manipulation cards in my deck. Again, these aren't hard rules. Feel free to do. I've won games with all manipulations. I've won games with all foundations, unranked. there's lots of fun ways to play this game, but especially if you're new and you don't have the knowledge yet to understand how to build the deck so that it can be successful. Um, these are good starting rules, because with the 2-card hand on any given turn, you want to have access to both as an option most of the time. And you don't want to have to necessarily dig through your deck a long time for that one disruption card if you only have one disruption, or vice versa. You don't want to end up not having any foundation and you're kind of fizzling all your manipulation cards when there's nothing to manipulate. So having a good balance is very important, and that's how I would suggest thinking about it. Pick some foundations, pick some manipulations, and about half of each, you're usually in a pretty good spot. So at this point, let's say I want to go offensive. So we're not going to do anything tricky. There's some cool stuff we can do with aura. We're keeping this simple for today. I'm just going to say let's throw some range offense at my opponent. So what do I want to grab? Range. One of the cool things about range as an offensive foundation card is its ability to score points is not dependent on stats. So there's nothing wrong with going slow if you want to go slow, but you have the ability to go fast, and it's on a foundation card. There's not really a big downside to it, because you're still getting, with this specifically with range, the ability to score those points, even if you have almost no stats. That said, range is unique in the fact that you really, really want your highest number between those two range points, and ideally your weakest number on the opposite side of your two range points. So this one, I love that 31 in the middle. I'm not a huge fan of the 8 on the other side. That's still single digit. This is very playable. But that, if it was, say, this 35 here and the one on the back, I would like this one a lot more. In this case, I don't think I really want to go 20. Again, this would be a perfectly fine 20. I'm going to say let's grab a 42. We got a 3 on the other end. I love that. And what else can we do here? We could go here, 35 with the 4 is pretty solid. We go down to 16. We got some other nice options. Again, I'm just looking for big numbers between those two range points. Now you can, the most important thing in my opinion is just have a small number opposite the range points. If you got two that are strong on the sides like this one here, this is still playable. I think you could run that just fine. You can play this against one of your own cards, hit the range that are attacking that card, and then have strong on each side as well. Again, it's just that backside that rarely you're attacking into your backside, so you don't want your backside to be where you're spending your points on your challenge abilities. Let's say in this case, I'm just going to get one range, and I want to mix it up with some other stuff. Maybe I want some rooted. So rooted is almost always better to draw earlier. It's also generally nice if you can get it out earlier, because you want them to fizzle their disruption on you. Usually the downside to going first, because you get that speed point, you get first priority on where to play, but the downside is then your opponent has an extra target to attack. Rooted makes up for that because they cannot be disrupted. They cannot be manipulated except by your own command card. So they like going first. So with that in mind, while again, there's plenty of power to be had in going slow. The snail's kind of a meme card we like to talk about on the Discord a lot, but he is actually playable, and I've won quite a bit with him. But in any case, new player, I'm saying look at your faster cards. Again, what's fast for you? Your collection is going to vary, but generally speaking, 15 and up, 16 and up, that's where I'm looking. Ideally, I want to have a couple sides, but I'm fine with one really big side. Like this could still be playable. Same with her. In this case, I think I will go. At this point, I don't know what I'm going to do for my territory. I'm only hitting 42, so I don't necessarily need to go super high, because I'm probably going to go with the lower territory. I'll explain that later. So in that case, I might go with this 45. But if I was trying to shoot for like 49s and 50s, then this guy would get priority because of that 49 there. And if I was going even lower, and again, I don't have to, but I could go with this 33, that'd be fine too, but I'd want to build around that. I want a territory that 33 can score. So let's take a break here just to talk about that. Territories. easy not to think about these at all. You're just throwing in this shared thing that you don't even have a 50-50 chance of it being played or your opponent's. But since you do have control over it 50% of the time, it's good to consider it when building your deck. And what do I want to do here? How can I make this more advantageous to me than my opponent? So at this point, with even just these handful of cards, I know that if I have to play one of these guys first, I'm at most going to be able to score on the high end of a 44. And ideally, I would like to be able to score with the 41 here, since this has a 42. This one's probably not getting me any high ground, but again, I'm saving this for the right moment anyway. Ideally, I'm never playing this against the territory anyway, so we don't have to think about it too much, but these two matter. So in that case, I might order by power, and I'm going to go down till we get to 41s, and we got lots of options here. At this point, we're still pretty early in the deck building, but if I wanted to be really optimal, I could go here with the 20, because then I actually do have the ability, if I need to play this, to get that 21 would score me a high ground. Again, I really wouldn't want to do that, but it would be kind of cool that I could. All right, so we've defined that. So far we have 2 foundations, 1 manipulation. So let's add ourselves another manipulation. Try to keep things balanced. We've already got our command. We could add more, but let's look at disruptions now. That again is confuse, fear, or stomp. All of them are powerful. I tend to favor stomp and confuse a little bit over fear personally, but your mileage may vary. These are another one of those types that can go high or low speed. There's situations where you want both. I generally, with stomp, tend to prefer low. With confuse, I tend to prefer high. And fear, I'm kind of indifferent. Maybe a little bit of preference for low, but either one's fine. Reason, again, is I want to have those targets, and there's almost always a valid target for stomp. Whereas with confuse, the thing, well, slow can still absolutely work. It has to hit at an angle, and that makes it tricky. It's much more easy for your opponent to block you off if they see you're going for confuse by just pushing the board to somewhere where the confuse can't hit any useful targets. So I almost always want to make sure I can hit first if I am going confuse. With that in mind, let's look at a confuse. So we'll get off of power, and instead we're going to look at speed again. If we are focusing on speed, you can see I got a pretty nice 20 here with that 1-1. Don't feel like you need that. Again, let's say you don't have that. Let's say you have this 17. It's got better stats, and it's got these other sides. It's not that much better, but it's enough that you're not at a huge disadvantage if this is your best for your confuse fast. But again, you do want to try to look for either a big single or a strong corner. If this 14 was up or down instead of on the back of the 47, this would be incredible. Again, I don't like splits. There are some types like stomp where the splits don't matter, but on confuse, I'm almost always playing against something with my strong side, which means the most relevant sides after the strong side are the whatever's next to it on the corners, and the backside often gets pushed off the map anyway, so having points here is often a waste. So this is a case where I'm not a big fan of it, even though I love that 47. I wish we weren't wasting so much points on the backside. That makes me more interested in playing this one. But 36-15, 36-9, these aren't incredible corners either compared to a 47 with the power. And this can take the high ground, which this cannot. So these are things to keep in mind. In fact, let's look at that now. Do we have anything here that can hit a 41 if we need to go for that second high ground? I am not seeing anything. So again, we have another split. This split's not as bad. Only an 8 on the back, so we got a little bit more on the side for protection. This one's worthy of consideration, I'd say. Similar here, but again, on those splits aren't my favorite. This one's got a decent split, but the 29's lower than we'd prefer. So nothing optimal for this particular territory, and sometimes you do need to adjust. I think this is still going to be okay, though. It's also worth considering I could pivot into going with the dragon here as my confuse option. This 18's got the 38 and 4 here. That's pretty nice. I'm, a little disappointed I can't get the high ground, but the dragon, because of flight, can turn pretty much anything into a high ground, so it's not the end of the world. And again, this is a nice setup here. I can get on multiple sides. If this was 11, I'd like it a little more because then I'd have the option to potentially at least get double flight on this corner. Right now, I can only get flight here and here. So that's something to consider with the dragon, which you don't consider with any other of these guys or girls as it is. This one's also not terrible, but again, I wish this was a little bit lower. I like this one better. 38 is going to be successful much more often. I can also just to say, hey, I'm going to use a foundation on this, so let's not worry about it too much. And as long as I can hit the second, since I'm fast anyway, and if I have to play this first, and again, I don't want to play a confuse first, but if I did, he has a chance at taking it. So that's something to consider as well. At this point, I think I am going to go with this guy here, 47. We'll play that for a confuse. Now, I could use multiple confuses, but variety, as a rule of thumb, generally better than just picking a bunch of the same ones. Now, there are, again, so many exceptions to that where you want to focus on a theme, but in this case, we're just trying to make you a generally decent deck, and in that case, I'm going to look at Stomp next. And high-speed Stomp, great. It works great, but I prefer low-speed Stomp. If you have one of these ones, they're just incredible in my opinion. I would almost, no matter what the stats are, I would run it. But in general, you're looking for, again, a 1 somewhere, ideally opposite your biggest side. But with Stomps, that doesn't even matter as much. It's okay because they can push behind them and turn their back into a strong as well. So either of these two giantesses would be fantastic choices. This one's not bad. These actually don't have ideal stats, but you can see at 1 speed you get so many points that you can afford some bad distributions. But I really like these stat distributions, and both of these can get my high ground. I think I am going to go, I could go either way, but I think I'm going to go here. I like having a little extra stats spread around when I'm doing a stomp so I can really squish in between stuff. So that's how we'll choose that. All right, so now we go back, 3 manipulations, 2 foundations. Let's go back to foundation. We could go a lot of different ways. We could add more range if we really wanted. We could add more offense or defense. We got a little of both, and you can go all one or other. I don't think that necessarily needs to be all in. But this case, I think we will go with enforced. So enforced is another one where I like to go fast. This is because it's not earning me points, so I really want to get it where it needs to go, and it's somewhat protected against disruption. Not as much as rooted, so not as important to go first as with rooted. And as you can see, at low speeds, you get just incredible stats. So it is worthwhile to consider going slow, but I'm going to choose to go fast here to make sure I get this enforced where I want it, when I want it. With enforced, consider that this part of your corner that's a strong corner is your enforced side. So you want to be up against it with something big. So here, this would work. I would prefer if this was also strong as opposed to this split, but this is still viable. I don't like this. So this is where I would not like, where the strong side is opposite the enforced side. Still technically playable, but your enforced side's often going to get pushed off and thus not help you. But it can still protect you, depending on where you placed it, from a confuse or a fear from that side. So not the end of the world, but that's not ideally what I'm looking for here. This is pretty solid. Again, I'd rather this be the 33, but it's a pretty good spread. It'd be perfectly acceptable as well. But where we're really seeing some min-max beauties over here is when we get down to these tornadoes. Just a 5 down there. Let's pick that for this one. All right, so we're down to our last two cards. You can see here we now have all three of our foundations can take the highest high ground, and our stomp can and our confused can. So we have so many options here. We have a very high probability of no matter what we draw, we're going to be able to take a high ground, even if they beat us on speed. So we don't have to worry about it too much. Still worth considering, but just we have a little more flexibility because we've gone so high on our powers to this point that we're already at a high percentage chance of being able to take either high ground if we go first or second, either way against an opponent. So on that, and again, we can't control what they're going to play. Who knows? Maybe they play 49 and none of this can take anything. But we've set ourselves up for ours, which the only thing we can control. And that's also a reason to consider these 47s or 45s, for instance, even though they're a little overkill, they do help us. If our opponent went 46, we're still covered. So again, don't feel like you have to hit it exactly every time. But now that we are even, we can go either direction. And we still have our dragon. We haven't decided that. The dragon is inherently a foundational card, but you can also couple it with either manipulation or further foundation. So that's something to consider. That would mean push me a little bit more toward grabbing a manipulation card with my last one. So let's go fear. Yeah, you can go either way with fear. I tend to favor speed a little bit, but slow I've had success with as well. Thing about fear here is you're fearing the thing you're attacking. So in many cases you can manipulate them into your stats such that even if you have weaker stats, you can turn that to your advantage where you put yours just better than theirs against their weakest, something along those lines. So that helps it. I've seen a lot of people really love 20 speed fears. It's just this play it at any moment to disrupt something, and there's almost nothing you can do about it. Unlike Confused, though, Fear is a much easier card to play when you go second because it's hard for them to block it out. There's almost always somewhere you can play and disrupt something. So, and it's also, I'd say, one of the few cards where if it's slow, it's still not a bad card on turn 7, the final turn. Because again, it's just so hard for your opponent to keep you from getting some value out of it. So again, go whichever way you'd like. In this example, though, we've gone speed, 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 slow. We haven't gone a ton of slow yet. We could go all speed, but I think because we have so much speed already, I'm going to go with slow. And I think I will grab, I mean, this is super min-maxed here. I don't know that it's as important for fear for a number of reasons. I like more of like a corner of 3 with fear, so I have lots of options of how I can play it because I'm going to disrupt them. But this is strong. I'm going to grab it. So at this point, we only have 2 slow cards. They're both disruptions. We got lots of speed. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 manipulations and only 3 foundations. So we could go manipulation or foundation on this last one, but we'd probably be leaning foundation with our dragon. Let's go look at that dragon. So dragons, all types. We kind of want to decide what type we want. I'm thinking maybe this example. What have we not used yet? So I'm not a huge fan of the Aura Dragon without extra stomps to really set it up or extra commands. But we haven't used Aura yet. We haven't used Flight, but they already have Flight. We don't have a ton of stuff that we can spin around to advantage. So going Command Dragon here, while viable, isn't necessarily the greatest choice for this setup. It'd be different if we were running Flight or Aura. I might lean that way. Let's take a look at our rooted dragons. Just take a look. We've already got some rooted, but we can go high or low on speed with these guys. Let's take a look at our high speed stuff first. Not perfect, but playable. This is probably the nicest one we've seen so far as a split. Again, if that 7 was opposite the 48, I'd like that more. Fine, but I think the one we saw at a higher speed had almost identical corner stats and has that higher speed, so I'd favor that. Now we're getting down to those mid speeds where you often don't get your high value for it, but it is worth taking a look at them, especially if you have a newer collection, because sometimes you'll see something like this and you go, that's a nice corner. This could be value here, especially for a dragon. I actually like this setup a lot. With rooted, and especially on the dragon, I'm looking for just a 1 on the one side if I can get it opposite my biggest side, because they can't mess with this. So I can push this up against something and get multiple points on multiple directions. And if I'm on the edge of the map, then this 1 isn't even going to matter. If I'm in the middle of the map, then I'm kind of forcing them to go behind me. Otherwise, they, again, just enable my strong stats against them. I think I will go with that here in this case. The thing to consider is I would like to get a high ground with it if I could. 41, we'd need to 51 to get it if we can't go fast enough. And at 9, we're not necessarily going fast enough. So let's back up for a second. Here we go. We got ourselves a 52. So, and I love this corner. We got a strong corner. Even if we go second, we can take both high grounds. Because we can take the high ground and we have flight, we have the potential here to get 3 points off of either high ground and then attack with our range these other sides. So this one actually works very well with this particular territory we picked. All right, so let's review. Well, why did we build this deck? We focused on getting about half foundations, half manipulations, 1 command, and we tried to have a decent number, not necessarily all, but a decent number of our cards be able to take both high grounds for the territory we've chosen. In this case, we actually really knocked it out of the park. Only 1 card can't get both. That's this command up here. And in its case, it can still take the lowest low ground. So we did have to play it first for some reason. We could still end up getting 2 points plus the speed point on that first turn. So that's the general idea. I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. Always happy to help, or check us out on Discord. Again, the Discord is the primary one for Draconis 8, and I'll try to put that in the comments or in the description on the video for you if you're not familiar with it. Thanks, and have yourselves a great day.